I'm introducing our welcome remarks speaker today, Ms. Diana MARRERO. She is the Chief Partnerships Officer for Foreign Policy. Please welcome Ms. MARRERO.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. This is our first Her Power in Davos, so we're very, very excited to have you all here with us today. Thank you. We have been hosting Her Power forums in Washington, D.C. and New York for the last several years, and first time on the Magic Mountain, so thank you for joining us. I wanted to just make very brief remarks to set the stage for this forum. As you all know, we're in a very precarious situation in terms of geopolitics, but also for women and women's rights and women's leadership. And so today, on your chairs, you'll see our latest issue of our magazine, Foreign Policy. It's called The World Minus One, and I encourage you all to read it. It's really interesting in terms of, the ideas that are being thought through about what's next as the U.S. and the U.S. government retreats from multilateralism and multilateral institutions. What does that mean? What kind of ripple effects that might have across the globe? And that is the case with women worldwide as well. And so, you all know the headlines, the statistics are really sobering. The latest issue of the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Index shows that not one country has achieved gender parity, not one of them. And the latest report from the Women, Business and the Law from the World Bank shares that women globally enjoy 2/3 of the rights of men around the world. And, in terms of healthcare, women live longer, but they have fewer, healthier years. And those statistics can be found in the McKinsey Health Institute, and we'll be hearing from them later on. But, there is some hope, right? There's innovation, there's so much change, so much technology, and really smart people like you all thinking about solutions and thinking about, what are some of the policies and regulations and different new forms of finance that can be used to address these issues. So we're also hopeful. And we want to make sure that we've brought the world's brightest minds to have those solutions-oriented conversations. So to that end, let's start focusing on where progress is being made, what models are proving effective, how partnerships can scale outcomes across sectors and regions. You'll see the full agenda on your seats today. There's a QR code you can follow along and learn more about our speakers. So I want to thank you again for being here. I want to thank our partners at the World Women House, Davos, also the McKinsey Health Institute, MSD, and Pandora for their support. We couldn't do it without them and without our readers as well. And so now let's dive right in. So Andrew Sollinger, publisher and CEO of Foreign Policy, will be kicking us off with a conversation with SVIATLANA TSIKHANOUSKAYA, leader of the Democratic Forces of Belarus. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Appreciate it, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for Rupa and World Women Davos for hosting us today. We're so excited to be here and bring her power to Davos. So Diana doesn't pump herself up much, but she developed the Her Power initiative at Foreign Policy, and we're so incredibly proud of the work that we've done, highlighting leadership lessons from women who are better leaders. Let's face it, I'm very proud of the fact that Foreign Policy is actually 60% women. That's why we're successful and doing very well, and I try and not muck that up. So happy to have you join us, SVIATLANA. I really appreciate your time here. You can look online on the agenda, and you can see SVIATLANA's bio. But just to remind everyone who you're going to be hearing from today, SVIATLANA is the national leader of Belarus, head of the United Transitional Cabinet. She won the Belarusian presidential election in 2020, but Alexander Lukashenko remained in power, and as a result, result, Svetlana became the leader of the opposition forces of Belarus and is now really focusing outside of the country on marshaling those resources. You do a lot. You make sure that Belarus stays top of mind for world leaders. You spend a lot of your time talking to world leaders, reminding them of what's happened in Belarus, the role Belarus has played in the war on Ukraine by Russia, and you do a fantastic job of that. And that is something that is now entering its fourth year, the war in Ukraine. As we know, it's frightening to think about that. And Belarus and Lukashenko are still serving as the staging ground for Vladimir Putin's invasion. So I wanted to start by talking about that and that point. I was just randomly reading the Financial Times today, and Maria Kolesnikova, who was recently, she's a fellow opposition leader, recently released from prison in Belarus. And there has been some yielding from Lukashenko, who's looking for better terms with the Trump administration. And he let Maria out and says Europe should try, she said in this Financial Times piece, that Europe should try to draw Lukashenko closer, that putting him in isolation actually pushes him into Putin's arms. And I'm wondering what your thinking is on that. That's a very controversial statement to make, obviously. I know you know Maria very well. Your thoughts?
So first of all, thank you for having me as the guest. It's the first event for me in during this Davos week, and I'm so grateful that I can have energy of wonderful women with me through all these weeks.
It'll all be downhill from here, I promise.
So as for Belarus, you know, all these 5 years since 2020, my policy is that we have to not to save Lukashenko from Putin, because he will always serve to this person. They're both dictators, they have symbiotic friendship, they need each other, and you cannot split them. We have to save our country from Lukashenko. So that's why my work was, first of all, you know, to keep Belarus high on agenda, to rediscover Belarus to the world, because it was like gray zone constantly. Nobody knew what was happening in our country. And now people understand that Lukashenko is not Belarus, Lukashenko is not the nation, that Lukashenko is ready to sell our sovereignty and independence to Putin just in exchange for his personal power. And I think it's can be a huge mistake if we can adopt the idea that we can split these two dictators. And that's why, you know, we work that, you know, to put pressure on Lukashenko regime for them to change their behavior. Because we are so grateful to the President Trump administration, for John Cole personally, that they're holding this humanitarian track on release of political prisoners. But we have to keep in mind that while releasing some people, Lukashenko detained twice more. So his policy is not changing. And when we see this in newspapers, Lukashenko released people, our eyes can perceive that, you know, something is changing in Belarus, but nothing is changing. People are repressed, people have to flee Belarus because of terror, and that's why our task is much broader than just releasing people. Of course, releasing people is our priority, but we have to save our country. People have to have opportunity to return home, just to start their businesses in Belarus. But it's impossible while Lukashenko is there. So that's why, of course, you know, since 2020, we are calling for national dialogue. All the changes in any country go through negotiations, you know, but we need to stop terror, first of all, you know, and then, you know, to talk to this regime on equals nation with the regime. Because what Lukashenko wants, he wants to return to business as usual. Let's talk to Europe, let's talk to the USA, like avoiding nation interests.
Excellent. So I'm just curious about how the war has impacted your movement. Has the war shifting Putin's focus away from Belarus, also not necessarily going in his favor, has that created more space for the opposition movement, for Lukashenko, your opposition movement? I would think it has. And then following on that, there's so much going on in the world right now, all over the world: Venezuela, Iran, Greenland, how do you? It must make it more difficult to keep Belarus in the conversation. How do you do that? We just talked about you traveling the world and speaking with all these world leaders. It must be a difficult task.
Of course, it's rather difficult, to keep Belarus in focus because there are bigger crises in the world. But I really don't want to compare whose crisis is bigger and deeper, because we have to share our pain, not to compare this, because we have Ukraine nearby. People are being killed there by Russia. And of course, the war in Ukraine put Belarus in new context, because if before we had humanitarian crisis and political crisis mostly, now it's understandable that while Lukashenko is there, who is servant to Putin, who is ready to provide our territory for terrorizing our European neighbors, so Belarus became a part of broader security context. That we explaining to our partners that look, without friend democratic Belarus, there will be no security for you as well. It's not now only about political prisoners. It's about your safety. We see migrants attacking the borders. We see these balloons going to Lithuania and interrupting airspace. Nuclear weapon that is being deployed in Belarus. This constant blackmailing of Ukraine, that sooner or later new missiles can be launched from our country. So that's why Lukashenko, he will be allied to Putin, and Putin knows this. But Putin also knows that Belarusian people against Lukashenko, against this Russian clause that Putin keeps on Belarus, that Russia is a threat to our sovereignty. So Putin he's backing Lukashenko politically and economically, but he knows that, Belarusians will never accept this Russian Russian prevalence, in our country. We want return to our European family of countries. We want European future for Belarus, and this is what we are fighting for.
Outstanding. I love, by the way, a few anecdotes there. You want to share, not compare crises, which is a frightening thought that you have to actually compare crises, but that is a great sentiment and a way to approach that. Your path to leadership was a very unconventional one. Your husband initially, who had a great YouTube presence, was spearheading events, but you rose to prominence after he was barred from running for president, and shortly afterwards he was imprisoned, and he was released this past summer. And that is a very unique situation that I would think you found yourself in. The Washington Post wrote a piece about this, that, how did you and your husband navigate leadership with you clearly rising to prominence and becoming the global figurehead of the Belarus opposition movement, and he comes out of prison and you've become way bigger than he ever was in this space? And if you could just share a few insights on that and how you've managed that personally.
Only among us women. Of course, for me and for Belarusians, my husband was really leading figure. He was wonderful. He was brave, and she encouraged, people to get up from the sofas and, fight against Lukashenko regime. But, 5 years in prison, he was in isolation. He knew very little what was happening in the world. He was in incommunicado mode for more than 2.5 years. And when he was deported from Belarus, he lost context. He was sure that he was released into society 2020. He wasn't ready that such level of repression somehow influenced people's moods. We went through all these repressions. We, together with the Ukrainians, we saw the war in Ukraine. People who fled Belarus, we going through transnational repressions as well. So people's relatives, people who are in exile, their relatives in prisons are also terrorized by the regime. So people hiding their faces. Even for going to the rally in Poland, in the USA, people can put in Interpol wanted list. So of course people are afraid, and my husband, he was like, why you not so the same brave as you were in 2020? Where is your bravery? And of course, he saw that his wife, is taking this leading position. I'm well known in the world. I'm built alternative institutions of power, and we keep this unity. And I think that he was lost a little bit. And he's not competing, to my leadership, but he cannot realize, till the end that the world, Belarusians have changed. So we we have many conversations about politics, and we are arguing a lot. But now we are trying to divide our personal life, family life, and political one. He wants to be a politician. He just doesn't want to be like, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya husband, though he says I'm the first gentleman, but I understand he also has his own ambitions, and I don't want to somehow мешать. Yeah. So
that's a fantastic story. As if your life wasn't a movie already. That twist, came in. I think it's wild. And thank you for sharing those personal insights just amongst us women. So I also wanted to point out, I know you have a meeting that you have to go to at the Congress Centers, but I didn't want to let you go without asking you a question about the parallels between what you're experiencing and how you have forged a path and Maria Machado in Venezuela. So she's the opposition leader in Venezuela. To refresh everyone, you all know this already. Maduro was taken out by the Trump administration, and now she is waiting in the wings, but Trump is sticking with the regime that's currently in power. Maduro's regime currently in power in Venezuela, which leaves her hanging out there a little bit. You've worked very similar parallels. You've worked to secure important prisoner releases. Trump administration has engaged closely on that. She presented Trump with her Nobel Peace Prize last week to try and win him over, but he continues to be seemingly working with the regime, by the way, also headed by a woman, Delcy Rodriguez. Women not only opposition leaders, but also in this example, in the actual regime. What insights from your experience might you share with Machado right now? And you two have met, I understand. Is that correct?
So we haven't met personally, but we talked a lot through Zoom because she was hiding in Venezuela, and I'm so encouraged by her bravery and unity that she's managing to keep among Venezuelan people. Of course, the context of both our countries will be different. You cannot copy one country with another, but nevertheless, I think that. Maybe now is the moment when President Trump is communicating to pro-regime, people in Venezuela, but it doesn't mean that we have to stop building institutions, that we have to keep people united, that we have to show the power of nation, power of people, because sooner or later the situation can change, and we have to be prepared, the same as Maria Corina Machado is also prepared. Who knows, maybe, as we say, now President Trump is communicating somehow with Lukashenko through special envoy that was appointed. But as we say, today you are highly respected president, tomorrow you can be Maduro. And we have to be prepared for this moment, showing that we have capacity, showing that we have institutions, showing that we have, power and strength, to come to the country and hold free and fair elections and move our country for changes. So that's why, President Trump is a rather unpredictable, person.
We've seen this, yes.
Yeah, and our attacks now, we are in coordination with the American government. I'm really grateful that President Trump, as I said, appointed special envoy in Belarus. It's very few countries in the world where special envoy is working on separate country, and we see that they are following humanitarian track. President Trump showed it very clearly that Lukashenko, you have to release people. It's not about changing policy towards Belarus, because our American partners understand that we want free and democratic country, not only release of people, but again, it's so ugly that regime makes people bargain chips. regime is selling people. And of course, America is lifting some sanctions for the release of people. But let's American sanctions be for saving people's lives, but European sanctions, European power, European Lukashenko's isolation for bigger changes. This is how we are promoting our cause at the moment.
Well, you're an inspiration to, I know, the people of Belarus, to all those who are in opposition of tyranny, and I think now, and to Machado, and I think now to our Her Power audience as well. So thank you for sharing your insights. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
SVIATLANA TSIKHANOUSKAYA.